Black CEO kicked out of his own bank. But what happens next is utterly shocking. Jason Clarke stood in the boardroom, jaws dropped all around him, as if they were witnesses to a car crash. His heart thudded in his chest with disbelief. He had built this bank from the ground up, pouring years of sleepless nights and relentless ambition into it. Yet here he was, the very board he had inspired, now turning against him like a pack of wolves. "We've made our decision," they said, cold and detached, as if sealing his fate with a simple vote. Astonishingly, the power they wielded felt alien. It was like they were puppets, and he was the discarded string. He stumbled outside, the world around him blurred with emotions. Anger bubbled like lava. Fear nipped at his heels. The hustle of the city seemed distant, muffled by the weight of betrayal pressing down on him. Could this really be happening? The whispers in his past crept to the surface, haunting him. The irony stung. Now, in his moment of triumph, he was being brutalized by the very people he had helped thrive. He took a deep breath, feeling the city air rattle through his lungs. Instead of retreating into despair, a flicker of determination ignited within him. This wasn't over. He couldn't let them win, not while shadows from his past loomed large. As he turned to leave the street, lined with glass towers and secrets, he noticed a figure striding toward him. Carmen Reed, his old rival, once a fellow dreamer, now a looming spectre of ambition on a collision course with his life. "Interesting turn of events, eh, Jason?" she smirked, an edge of glee lacing her words. Carmen had always been a whirlwind, a force of nature, and this moment felt like just the beginning of a storm. An inner fire ignited. What lengths would he go to reclaim his power, to confront both Carmen and the swirling doubts about his family's hidden legacy? As a child, he'd heard whispers of dark dealings. Oh, the pressure intensified, turning into a weight he could hardly bear. The tension wrapped around him, gripping tighter with every heartbeat. Just when he thought he might have a chance to reclaim the boardroom, another shocking thought struck him. The very people he thought he could trust might be part of the conspiracy to undermine him. Betrayal ran deeper than he ever imagined. Jason took a tentative step back, his heart racing with dread. A sense of unease enveloped him, swirling with anger and desperation. What awaited him in this web of deceit? Just then, the realization hit him like a cold wave. He was not just fighting for his position. He was battling a faceless enemy lurking within, inching closer than he ever thought possible, ready to strike. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without any notice. Take a quick look at the red button below too. I love getting to know every incredible person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Jason felt the weight of uncertainty tightening around him. Just when he thought he grasped the threads of his own destiny, everything felt ready to unravel. Carmen stood there, glimmering with her usual confidence. But Jason could feel the tension simmering underneath those cool veneers. What did she know? What was behind her twisted smile? "Let me give you a piece of advice, Jason," Carmen said, her voice low and almost conspiratorial. "Fight back. The real game has just begun. Her words hung like fog in the air. He didn't trust her, not for a second. But there was something in her eyes, a spark of truth or a cruel taunt. He glanced away, scanning the busy street, and sirens wailed in the distance. Life was rolling on without him. Then, suddenly, chaos erupted. A deafening explosion roared nearby. It rattled the ground, shaking the very air around them. Glass shattered from the shattered windows of the bank behind him, raining shards like deadly confetti. Screams pierced the city, blending with the chaos. The moment felt surreal, like a scene from a movie. "Get down!" someone shouted. Jason dropped instinctively, his heart pounding so hard he almost forgot about Carmen. Smoke surged into the air, twisting into grotesque patterns. What just happened? As he glanced up, he noticed Carmen on the ground, frozen. Was it fear? Or was it something darker? Her eyes darted past him, locking not onto the chaos, but onto something or someone hidden farther down the street. The fracturing world around him faded momentarily as Jason moved towards Carmen. He reached her side, still panting from shock. "What did you know?" he demanded. But before she could answer, another explosion echoed, closer this time. The air thick with dust, he struggled to see through the haze. "Carmen, what are you hiding?" She flinched, her expression twisting. "It's not me!" she gasped, pointing behind him with trembling fingers. Jason turned and froze. A figure emerged from the smoke. It was familiar, yet unrecognizable. It was Victor, his childhood friend, the one he thought had moved to another state long ago. But Victor was tied to all the whispers from Jason's past. Those hidden family secrets. Jason hadn't seen him in years. And suddenly here he was, stepping into the light. Eyes focused on Jason with an intensity that sent chills down his spine. "Victor?" Jason stammered, mind racing. Every betrayal, every obscured truth from his youth poured into his thoughts. What was he doing here? The crowd around them was breaking into panic, people fleeing and yelling for help. Jason felt his own thoughts spiraling, but Victor's gaze didn't waver. "Remember the legacy, Jason. It's not just your fight anymore." A siren wailed behind them, but all Jason could focus on was Victor's words. What legacy? What dark truths was he hinting at? Why was Carmen's expression shifting from terrified to knowing? "Victor, this isn't your battle," Jason replied, his voice trembling. Victor grinned, but it was a bitter smile, one of shared pain. "It became ours the moment you stepped into that boardroom. You're fighting something far bigger than you realize." Jason's heart sank. Was Carmen somehow part of this? Was Victor pulling strings he hadn't even seen yet? In that moment, everything felt like it was tilting. The previous betrayal was just the tip of the iceberg, crashing into deeper waters of conspiracy and deception. Before he could ask more questions, another crack echoed. The world around him tilted as he felt the ground shake. "Run!" Carmen shouted, her tone fierce, her fear now replaced with urgency. But where could they run? What awaited them in this fray of smoke and shadows? The line between ally and enemy blurred, and Jason's chest tightened as he realized The real battle was just beginning. The answers he needed were buried in chaos, and he was left staring into a future fraught with danger and deception. Would he find the truth, or would the mystery consume him? Jason's heart raced as chaos unfolded around him. Carmen's urgent voice screamed for them to run, but the world felt like it was collapsing in on itself. Sirens wailed and people fled, but all Jason could focus on was Victor's intense gaze, those haunting eyes that seemed to hold answers wrapped in shadows. "Victor! What do you mean?" he shouted over the rising din. But Victor's lips only curled into that bitter smile. The thundering heartbeat in Jason's chest drowned out the chaos, and it took every ounce of strength to stay grounded. Then something shifted in the air. The smoke hung heavier, twisting like an evil spirit preparing. "We can't stay here!" she shouted again, her panic clear. But before Jason could respond, the ground quaked beneath him. A blinding flash illuminated the smoke. It pierced through the darkness, hanging in the air, casting eerie shadows all around them. Then, without warning, a piercing scream echoed through the crowd, high and desperate. A figure stumbled forward, half dragging a body, their features hidden in the haze. As they drew closer, Jason's breath hitched in his throat. It was his brother, Daniel, the brother he thought he'd lost to the streets years ago. Grit and grime covered Daniel's clothes, his face bruised and bleeding, eyes wide with terror. "Help me!" Daniel gasped, collapsing to his knees. The crowd around them paused, a collective gasp rising into the air like the smoke itself. Jason felt time freeze, every heartbeat drumming a rhythm of fear. Why was Daniel here? What had happened? "Jason!" Carmen shouted, pulling him back from the shock. "We have to go! No! I can't leave him!" Jason cried, rushing to his brother's side. Daniel looked up, pain etched deep into his features. But there was something else, something buried beneath layers of anguish. A flicker of recognition? Fear! Jason, listen. Daniel's voice was broken. "They're coming for you. The board. They don't want you to succeed. It's all connected. It's about more than just the bank." "What do you mean?" Jason's mind reeled. How could this be happening? Daniel shouldn't be here. Not now. Not like this. Suddenly, Carmen stepped forward, her expression shifting from fear to something darker. "Your family has secrets, Jason," she shouted, her voice laced with an urgency that felt chilling. Jason turned to look at her, confusion mixing with anger. "They're entwined in all of this. Your rise, everything." But before he could ask more, a dull roar echoed through the chaos, followed by a fresh wave of screams. The crowd surged again, people pushing against one another in panic. Jason felt dizzy, trapped in a whirlpool of betrayal and truth. "Victor!" he shouted, suddenly aware of how the pieces fit together. The board betrayal, Carmen's taunts, and Daniel's bloodied form all interlocked, weaving a tapestry darker than he ever imagined. Carmen grabbed his arm, urgency in her grip. "You need to trust me, Jason. Try to remember what you've buried deep." Her voice cracked, raw with tension, and then it happened. Two loud booms sounded, one after the other. Like thunder splitting the sky, the ground quaked violently, and without warning, a crack erupted in the pavement, venomously wide and threatening. Jason stumbled backward, heart in his throat. But as he regained footing, Daniel reached out, fingers trembling. "It's your father. He's central to everything. Suddenly, the yells faded into an eerie calm. Time slowed as reality cracked open. The fight, the chaos, the betrayals. All of it shrank in that moment, only to expand again, like a black hole ready to consume him. What did Daniel mean? What legacy? The air grew thick with uncertainty and desperation, and Jason felt the world spinning out of control. Everything changed in an instant. The fight was no longer just about the bank. It was about family, loyalty, and the devastating secrets that tied them all together. And just when Jason thought he understood, a shadow fell across them. A figure lurking in the dark, whispering his name. Jason. Everything he thought he knew shifted, and the ground beneath them trembled. Jason felt the world around him twist as the figure emerged from the smoke. His heart raced. The name hung in the air, the way a storm cloud looms just before thunder crashes. Even before he turned, something deep in his gut twisted. It was a feeling that crept up his spine. Fear mixed with unease. "Father?" The word came out as a hoarse whisper, but it felt like a shout. His father, the man who had vanished from his life like a ghost, now stood there, alive and prowling in the chaos. The crowd moved like a tide, but Jason felt frozen in place. "Stay away from him!" Daniel shouted, pushing himself weakly up from the asphalt. "Daniel, get back!" Jason couldn't explain why he felt defensive and protective at that moment. His father's eyes, however, were sharp and calculating, scanning the crowd, the building, everything. Dark secrets hovered behind his expression. Hidden truths festered in the air like a thick fog. "What's happening? Why are you here?" Jason could barely contain the anger rushing through him. Not just about the sudden reunion, but about everything that had led to this. "Everything you've worked for, it's all at stake," his father replied, voice carrying a chill that cut through the chaos. "They're coming for you, Jason. For the bank. For our legacy." Voices gasped nearby. Someone shouted, "Is that him? Is that the CEO?" But all Jason could see was his father, the man who had abandoned him and his mother, the very reason for his family's fractured past. "What legacy?" Jason hissed, not recognizing his own voice. "What are you never telling me?" But before his father could respond, another explosion rumbled through the air. The smoke thickened, and out of the haze, Carmen's voice pierced the confusion. "We need to leave, Jason. Now!" His head spun. The betrayal, the anger at Carmen swirled in his thoughts. But suddenly Daniel's hand gripped his wrist. "He's not just your father, Jason. He's central to everything." The words exploded like fireworks, lighting a path through Jason's mental fog. "Central?" Jason's stomach dropped as the implications sank in. "What do you mean?" But Daniel's expression shifted. He opened his mouth, the words locked in fear. "You don't understand. He's not just a part of the bank. He's the reason for its downfall. He's been lying to you. That truth hit like a freight train. and the ground felt as if it might rip apart beneath him. "What are you saying?" he asked, his voice trembling. But just then, the distance echoed with sirens, an eruption of red and blue lights swirling through the smoke. Carmen tugged at his arm, eyes wide, the tension tightening like a noose. "There's no time! We have to go! Now!" The air shifted, heavy and thick with uncertainty. The realization felt like a stabbing blade to his gut. If what Daniel said was true, everything he believed about loyalty and family was crumbling. "I can't trust you," Jason spat, looking from his father to Daniel, torn between the two. Suddenly, a new shadow loomed over them, a figure stepping out of the dense chaos, face cloaked in darkness. "You think you know everything, don't you, Jason?" The voice was smooth and chilling, dripping with malice. A shiver ran down his spine. "Who are you?" The figure stepped into the light, revealing a face that sent shockwaves through Jason's core. It was Victor, but not just Victor. There was something else, an authority, a menace in his posture that Jason couldn't comprehend. "I'm here to show you the truth about your father, about your legacy." The world felt like it was imploding as Jason fought against the panic rising in his throat. What truth? But Victor's smile twisted as he leaned in closer. "You need to understand, Jason. Family can wear many masks. And sometimes the most shocking betrayals come from those you trust the most." Everything he thought he knew about loyalty, family, and trust began to unravel. The ground shifted once more, the world spiraling as Jason stood frozen, staring into the chaos, searching for what truth could possibly come next. Would he finally uncover the reality behind the mask? Or would the lies tighten their grip, dragging him further into the storm? The chaos of the moment wrapped around Jason like a suffocating coil. Victor stood before him, eyes glinting with secrets that felt too dangerous to trust. "Family can wear many masks," he said, leaning in closer, his voice smooth like ice. "And sometimes the most shocking betrayals come from those you trust the most." The crack in the pavement felt worlds away, but the threat in Victor's eyes jerked him back into reality. The weight of his father's presence loomed behind him. He could feel the tension crackling in the air like static electricity. It felt like the world had caught fire. People screamed. Chaos danced on the edge of reason. Jason's heart thrummed wildly in his chest. "Run!" Carmen shouted again, urgency pushing her words like a wave crashing against rocks. But Jason felt a pull, a magnetic force anchoring him right where he stood. His brother was on the ground, his father behind him, and Victor blocking the path forward. "Jason!" Daniel's pained voice broke through. "Don't listen to him! Your father! He's not the man you think he is!" Every word hit like a hammer. "What do you mean?" Panic flared within him, fierce and consuming. The bank was built on lies, on blood. "Don't you see?" Daniel struggled to rise, his voice cracking, desperation lining every syllable. "He didn't just abandon us. He stitched chaos into the very foundation of what you've built." The weight of his words felt like a punch to the gut. Jason looked at his father, searching for something, anything, that could explain Daniel's claims. But all he saw were cold, harsh eyes staring right back. Judgment and indifference swirled within. Then, without warning, an even louder explosion rocked the street. It sent a shockwave through the crowd, a violent ripple. The very air shook as debris rained down like confetti of chaos. With cries of terror filling the air, Jason watched in horror as people stumbled and fell, their faces twisted in shock. And then the impossible happened. From amidst the smoke and chaos, a figure broke through, slightly hunched but fierce, her presence undeniable. It was his mother, a ghost from his past. Her hair flowed like flames, anger etched onto her features, arms outstretched as if to shield her sons. "Jason!" she yelled, eyes wild like a whirlwind. "You have to listen! It's all connected! Your father, he's—" But before she could finish, another blast shook the ground. Jason felt a roar erupt in his heart, the weight of realization crashing in. In that split second, he'd never felt truth hit so hard. Was she warning him of their father's true nature? Victor's smile twisted into something darker as he stepped closer, surrendering the illusion of safety. "Right on time, Mum! You're the missing piece to the puzzle, aren't you?" The crowd gasped anew, fear rippling through them like wildfire. "What do you know?" Jason demanded, searching for clarity amidst rising confusion and anguish. Victor's smirk widened. "All the tales I could tell, the legacy we share, runs deeper than you know, Jason. Your mother was always the key." Suddenly, with a flash brighter than any explosion, a blinding light illuminated the chaos. The ground rumbled ominously, and just like that, silence fell over the street. Every voice was muted, breath was lost. In that haunting stillness, Jason realized something was shifting. He could see in his mother's eyes a truth so fierce it burned. You need to trust your heart, Jason, not the lies that have woven our lives together. Then came the scream. A high-pitched cry erupted from within the gathering storm, sharper than glass. "No!" His world splintered. In that moment he understood. Everything he thought he knew was a web of lies. The people he loved weren't just part of the story. They were pieces of a much larger game. A game he had unknowingly stepped into. The stakes were higher than he could fathom, and the ground beneath his feet felt precarious. As the chaos threatened to reign in again, Jason stood in shock, heart pounding, mind racing. Could he trust anyone? His head spun with the weight of betrayal and the reality of his family's history slamming into him like a freight train. They might all be players in a game far more dangerous than he ever imagined. And just as the whispers of truth echoed in his ears, Jason knew one thing for certain. The fight wasn't only for power. It was a fight for their lives. Would the truth lead to freedom or deeper shackles? The silence that followed felt stretched, heavy, like a thick blanket suffocating the chaos. Everyone was still, almost as if the world was. Her eyes were wide, pleading. You need to know the truth about your father. There's so much you don't understand. But the adrenaline pulsed louder in Jason's veins. Their past echoed uncomfortably, memories tangled with shadows. I don't even know who I can trust. The words burst out, fierce and trembling. Then, with a sudden crack, the ground quaked again, this time more intensely. A deep rumbling erupted beneath them, as though the earth itself protested against what was unfolding. It sent shock waves, causing the crowd to shift, to panic anew. Jason stumbled, his eyes darting between his mother and Victor, the secrets of his past colliding with the chaos of the present. "Get down!" Carmen shouted, pushing Jason and Daniel toward the ground. The smoke swirled like an angry beast. Panic surged through the crowd, and Jason's heart pounded in sync with the chaos surrounding him. In that moment of chaos and confusion, a figure emerged from the haze, a shadow breaking through. Someone he didn't expect. A brief flash illuminated the backlit scene, and Jason squinted against the brightness. "Dad?" His father stepped forward, a look of steely resolve on his face. But now he wasn't alone. Behind him was another figure, slim, lithe, cloaked in darkness. But Jason recognized that unmistakable way of holding herself, that air of danger. It was Isabella, his estranged sister, the one who had disappeared into the shadows of their broken family, the one whispered about in the dark. "Isabella, what are you doing here?" Jason felt a mix of betrayal, anger, and confusion washing over him. "It's about time you noticed," Isabella said, her voice dripping with disdain. "You're so blinded by family loyalty, you didn't even think to question our father's motives." "What do you mean? What's happening?" Jason shouted, his mind racing. "Everything!" Isabella stepped closer, the chaos swirling around as though the universe hung on her words. "I've been watching, monitoring the board's movements. They're not after just the bank, Jason. They're after you. After us. You think they want to destroy your father? What?" His breath came in sharp gasps, the revelation sending waves of disbelief crashing over him. They want to rewrite history, erase anyone who might challenge their narrative. You're a threat, Jason, because you embody everything they despise. You represent change. The pieces fell like dominoes, each revelation stacking higher than the last, cracking open the facade of truth he'd built. Why would you come back now, Isabella? After all this time? "Because I'm not just here because of you," she shot back, her eyes glimmering with determination. "I'm here because of the legacy. Our father is in deeper than you realize. He's not the savior you think he is." The crowd's fear morphed into confusion, whispers creeping in. "What does she mean?" Someone gasped. Just then, a sudden and deafening crack split the air, like thunder, but sharper, more agonizing. The ground erupted at their feet, splitting right down the middle. The shock sent Jason tumbling, the world spinning into chaos. "What the hell?" he shouted, fear twisting in his stomach. "Run!" Carmen yelled, her eyes wide with terror. But Jason felt rooted to the spot, overwhelmed by shock and adrenaline. From the deepening fissure, something began to rise. Thick, dark tendrils curling into the air. It felt alive, pulsing with a strange energy, wrapping around the air like snakes. "No! We have to stay together!" Jason yelled. But doubt clawed at him. What had they uncovered? The world blurred into panic. All the truths he thought he understood, family, loyalty, even betrayal, felt like they were morphing into something monstrous. His heart raced. What was in that gaping hole? What secret was it hiding? "Trust no one!" Victor shouted, voice rising above the turmoil. "Not even yourself!" Suddenly, the screaming crescendoed, a sense of dread creeping in. As the shadows around them deepened and the ground continued to quake, Jason was left standing on the edge of a new abyss, one that begged a terrifying question. In this family of lies and hidden truths, who was really in danger? And what had he truly inherited? The chaos twisted around Jason, shadows swallowing him whole. The earth shook violently, a reminder of everything collapsing around them. With a rush of adrenaline, he felt a surge of clarity. This wasn't just about the bank or family secrets. This was survival. "Jason!" Carmen's voice cut through, urgency blazing in her eyes. She tugged at his arm, pulling him back. "We need to get out, now!" But the fissure deepened in the street. Terror rippled through the crowd. "Look out!" someone screamed, as pieces of the asphalt crumbled. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed, louder than the explosions that had come before it. Jason's heart dropped. Then came the impossible. In a moment of surreal clarity, he saw it. A figure rising from the depths of the fissure. It was moving slowly, almost gliding, but then it erupted into view. "Dad!" Jason's voice pierced the air, but it wasn't his father stepping forward. It was a woman, draped in shadows, her face hidden. "Who are you?" He stammered, eyes wide, confusion flooding his senses. The woman stepped into the light, revealing striking features that flooded him with memory. A younger version of his mother. The truth struck like lightning. "No, it can't be!" Jason breathed, mouth dry, heart racing. "Surprised to see me?" she asked. Her voice held an echo of the past, a tapestry of warmth interwoven with bitterness. "I'm not the ghost you thought I was, Jason." Gasps erupted from the crowd. Whispers fluttered wildly. "Is she real? How can this be? Mom?" His voice trembled. But he stumbled over his words, the disbelief choking him. "I don't understand." "You think I left you?" she continued, stepping closer. "I had to disappear. Your father, he's not who you think he is. He's been using you as a pawn all along." The world felt like it spun out of control again. Jason fought against the rising tide of anger and confusion. "No, this doesn't make sense. You chose to leave." "No, Jason!" she pleaded, desperation bleeding through her voice. "I was taken. He made sure I vanished, erased from your lives. He's the puppet master, weaving this web of lies." A cold shiver ran through him. Could he believe her? His father had been a constant, albeit a painful one. To think he had manipulated everything they had shared. The ground shook again, but this time it felt like it was shaking because of the revelation. The whispers from the crowd grew. Uncertainty swirling like the smoke. What does she mean? He can't be that evil. Victor stepped forward, eyes dark, lips curling. "We don't need to listen to her. This is all a distraction. You're falling for her game." "No!" Jason shouted back, and a spark ignited within him. I won't let you twist the truth anymore! Enough! Daniel pushed himself upright, clutching his side, pain etched on his face. It was all real. The lies. The family. Mum couldn't just vanish. She did it for a reason. But before he could finish, the darkness shifted. Shadows twisted around them more intensely as the crowd collectively gasped. What's happening? Someone yelled. Panic rising like waves crashing onto the shore. The woman's face twisted into a knowing smile that sent chills creeping up Jason's spine. It felt wrong, not just dangerous. You all need to understand, this is just the beginning. With that, she raised her hands, and everything exploded. A blinding flash radiated outwards, almost overwhelming. Jason shielded his eyes, feeling heat wash over him, shadows warping into grotesque forms. When he opened his eyes again, the surroundings had changed. The world felt altered. The crowd was panicking, but they were no longer just afraid. They looked angry. Betrayal flickered in their eyes, their glances shifting to Jason and his family. Why didn't you tell us? Shouted a woman from the crowd. Why should we trust you? In that instant, relationships fractured. Jason looked around, confusion and despair clawing at him. His family had hidden so much, lies stitched tight into their history. He felt the ground slipping beneath him. What could he hold on to when the very foundations of his life had cracked wide open? What's real? Jason shouted, confusion clawing. Who can I trust? But the answers felt like whispers in a hurricane. He stood teetering on the edge, desperately wondering what had his family truly wrought, and what had risen from the depths of that dark fissure, threatening everything. As the shadows swirled, Jason knew one thing for sure. His reality was not just about to unravel, it was about to redefine everything he thought he knew. The silence hung heavy, thickening the air around them. Jason stood frozen, heart roaring in his ears. The revelations swirled like a relentless tide, crashing over him with every heartbeat. His mother? Out of the shadows, speaking words that twisted his sense of reality. Could he trust her? But there was no time to ponder. A crowd's gasp faded into whispers, fingers pointing, eyes wide with confusion. And then, in an instant, everything changed. A blinding light, brighter than before, erupted from the abyss in the ground. It flickered and pulsed, casting monstrous shadows across their faces. People scrambled back in panic, stumbling over one another. What now? Someone shouted, fear gripping their voice. Without warning, a violent wind surged forth from the fissure, just whipped around them like a cyclone, and Jason raised his arms to shield his face. His mother's voice cut through the chaos. It's coming! We have to move! But where? Where could they run from a force they couldn't see? Then he saw it, a figure emerging from the glowing cracks. Tall and shrouded in light, it stepped forward with a grace that sent chills down Jason's spine. The crowd fell silent, fear replacing panic, eyes locking onto the impossibility taking shape before them. What is that? Someone whispered, voice wavering. As the light dimmed, the shape solidified. A face he recognized but never truly understood came into view. It was his father, but older, eyes hollow, and filled with a wisdom that belied the man Jason thought he knew. A chill ran through him. How could this be? Dad? His father looked at him, a sorrowful smile creeping onto his lips. Jason, he said, voice both familiar and distant. It's time you knew the truth. The real truth. The crowd held its breath, words hanging unspoken in the air. We don't have time for games, Daniel shouted, clutching his side. What is happening? Listen! The urgency in his father's voice echoed, commanding attention. All of you listen. This isn't just about the bank or family legacies. It's much bigger. There are forces at play. Forces that have been watching us. You're all in grave danger. The gasps echoed back, and Jason's heart raced. Was he serious? What could be larger than what was already unfolding around them? Anxiety flooded the air, like static electricity before a storm. But then the ground rumbled again, and the light flickered. Jason sensed a shift in the crowd. A new energy, a realization dawning across faces. What do you mean, forces? Carmen broke the silence, eyes wide. Before his father could answer, the air crackled with tension. Another figure emerged, this one smaller, less defined. It moved in and out of the shadows, hesitant, yet potent, as if the darkness itself had a life of its own. The crowd gasped, drawing back. What is that? Someone screeched. Then the small figure stepped into the fading light, eyes shining bright like stars. I am the keeper of your secrets, it whispered, voice layered with echoes. All of your secrets. Everyone exchanged confused looks. What's going on? Victor breathed, disbelief creeping in. I'm here to reveal what you've hidden from yourselves. The real truth of your connections. The being's voice danced above the crowd, every syllable pulling them closer. And just like that, the air buzzed with anticipation, emotions simmering beneath the surface. Jason felt a lump form in his throat. What do you mean? What connections? Without missing a beat, the Keeper of Secrets pointed straight at his mother. The crowd gasped collectively. You were the beginning, weren't you? The truth was spoken, and it hung there, weighty and heavy. The crowd shifted uneasily. Jason looked at his mother, now the center of every eye. What does that mean? What are they saying? Before she could answer, a sudden boom echoed, shattering the gravity of the moment. Dust swirled violently, and amidst the chaos, Jason grabbed his mother's hand, desperate to pull her closer. Mum, what's happening? But even as he spoke, uncertainty flooded in. He could feel the walls closing around him, relationships shifting like sand beneath his feet. Was she the key to everything? And then, just as suddenly, the light flickered one final time, and everything went dark. In that suffocate, Jason's heart thundered, fighting the weight of his mother's looming presence. You need to trust me, Jason, she urged, her voice tangled with desperation and fear. But the shadows around them were thick and pressing, like a fog that curled into his chest, squeezing tight. Suddenly, the bright light pulsed again, and in that instant, Jason felt a surge of warmth envelop him. What are you hiding? He gasped, but the question felt lost in the air. His mother's face flickered with shadows. Truth and deception danced in her eyes. You don't understand! Before she could finish, the ground quaked once more. The air swirled, twisting beneath them. Tremors rippled through the crowd. People gasped, bodies swaying like leaves in a storm. Then came the scream, a high, piercing wail that echoed like sirens in the night. Jason jerked his head around to see Carmen, her expression twisted in horror. "Look out!" she screamed. A figure emerged from the swirling dust, stumbling, half dragging, half collapsing. "Help me!" The voice was desperate. Jason squinted, his heart racing. Daniel? But it wasn't Daniel. It was a woman, dirt-smeared and wild-eyed. It was Angela, Victor's long-lost sister, the one everyone thought had vanished forever. Jason's breath caught in his throat. "Angela!" "Jason," she rasped, clutching her side, blood seeping through her shirt. They're coming for you! All of you!" Panic coursed through the crowd as whispers turned into gasps. "Is she real?" someone asked. "What does she mean? Angela, what do you know?" Jason shouted, but she was trembling, eyes wide, gazing past him like she could see something lurking in the shadows. "Your father, he's part of it, more than you think. He orchestrated this," she hissed, her voice cracking with urgency. Shock rippled through Jason. "No, he wouldn't. He's not what you believe," Angela cut in, her desperation pulling everyone closer. "It's all a facade." The tension crackled, heavy and electric. Jason struggled to grasp the truth. "What do you mean?" He turned to his mother, searching for reassurance, and found only fear reflected in her eyes. Then another explosion rocked the ground, shaking everything. Jason stumbled, reaching out, but Carmen held his arm steady. "We have to go, Jason! Now!" But just as hope flickered in Jason's chest, a small object fell from the fissure, metallic and glistening amid the dirt. It rolled and came to a stop at Jason's feet. With trembling hands, he leaned down, picking it up. It was a locket. His heart dropped. He recognized it. It was his mother's, the one she'd worn when they were younger. Inside, photos of him and Daniel. But there was something else. The image of a man Jason had never seen before. A stranger. "Mom?" he breathed, voice shaky. "Who is he?" His mother paled, eyes widening, trembling. "No, you weren't supposed to find that. Not yet!" "Who is he?" Jason repeated, voice rising, anger flaring. "What are you keeping from me?" Angela staggered closer, eyes frantic. "It's bigger than you think," she urged again. "You need to know now. Your father manipulated everything, including your memories. None of it is real." The air stilled. Silence fell, heavy and suffocating. A shockwave crashed through him, shaking everything he knew. A lump formed in his throat, choking back words, back the painful truth. Then, as if the universe was responding to the tension, the ground rippled again, and the shadows began to part. The figure of darkness stepped forward, now illuminated in the shimmering confusion around them. And then, with a jolt, he realized this wasn't just a fight for survival. This was a fight for his very identity. The fissure opened wider, revealing darkness beneath, and Jason felt the ground teetering beneath him, threatening to plunge him into a void of uncertainties. "Your real legacy is still hidden in the dark," echoed a voice, one that sent shivers through his spine. Jason stood there, heart racing, fighting against the rising tide of panic. Everything he thought he knew was torn apart. The fight wasn't over. It was just beginning. And in the chaos, the most important question remained. What truths lay waiting in the shadows? The darkness pulsed around Jason, squeezing the air out of his lungs. Doubt hung heavy, but now he had his mother's eyes locked on his. The truth was battling to break free from the shadows. "You need to trust me," she repeated, desperation clear in her voice. But fear tangled with every word. Could he? With the chaos spinning around them, Angela's words crashed back into his mind. "Your father orchestrated everything. No, he's my father." Jason shot back, anger boiling in his chest. But inside the storm raged. What if she was right? Then the light flickered again, and suddenly a scream broke through the air, a roar, terrified wail echoing like thunder. Jason whipped around, searching. There stood Daniel, fear painted across his face. "Help!" he yelled, stumbling forward, blood oozing from a gash on his arm. "No!" Jason ran towards him, heart pounding with each step. He couldn't lose anyone else. "Daniel!" But as he reached his brother, another explosion rocked the ground, sending dust swirling like a cyclone. Jason tumbled, barely catching himself. Carmen grabbed his arm, her eyes wide with terror. "We have to get out of here." "Leave him," Victor shouted from the shadows, his expression a blend of anger and concern. "He's not safe." With his heart pounding in his chest, Jason felt torn. "Daniel, stay close." In that moment, the darkness surrounding them shifted. A silhouette loomed, eyes glowing in the haze. "The truth is within the shadows," it whispered, voice slicing through the noise. Suddenly, everything exploded in white light, brighter than the source of their pain. Jason shielded his eyes, struggling to keep his ground. He could hear frantic whispers, gasps echoing around him. And then silence. Jason peeked through his fingers. The chaos morphed into stillness. The glowing figure stepped forward. His mother, radiant and fearless, faced the darkness. "Enough!" she cried, a surge of power radiating from her. "We do this together!" The crowd gasped, every eye on her. Could she really break through? "No! You don't know," Daniel shouted, voice trembling. "He'll hurt you!" But Jason felt a swell of emotion. Not fear. Determination. "Whatever it takes!" he shouted, clutching Daniel's arm. "I trust her!" Around them the crowd murmured, doubt and fear battling hope. They had come so far. Suddenly his father's voice cut through the silence. "Jason." His father stepped forward, both familiar and foreign. "This legacy." He paused, eyes searching the crowd. "This family, it's twisted, but it can change. We must fight together." The energy shifted. The cracks between them seemed to heal. And suddenly, they weren't just family, they were a team. United against an unseen enemy. "Let's end this," Jason shouted, voice raw with determination. "Together!" Light surged, wrapping around them like a protective shield. The shadows began to retract slowly, flickering like dying stars. The fear dissolved into a sense of calm, and the air thickened with possibility. But just as Jason thought they had a chance, a final shadow flicked across the ground, weaving through them. "It's not over," Its voice echoed, ominous and deep. Jason stood tall, adrenaline rushing. No, we control our future now! And just like that, the figure retreated into the dark, leaving a glimmer of shadow behind. The crowd erupted, cheers melding with relief and the distant whir of sirens. "Are you all right?" Carmen asked, her breath shaky. "I will be," Jason said. The fight had been fierce, but they had found a path through the darkness. Their paths twisted with uncertainty, but hope flickered in Jason's heart. So many questions lingered. Where to next? What lay ahead? As the crowd settled, Jason took a deep breath, glancing around at the faces that had become allies rather than strangers. "What's next?" Daniel whispered, exhaustion etched in his eyes. "I don't know," Jason replied. "What?" Filled with the weight of the unknown. "But together, we'll face whatever comes. We fought through too much to back down now." And in that moment, surrounded by family, both blood and chosen, the world shifted once more. Something deeper stirred beneath the surface. As they faced the horizon, Jason held on to hope, knowing the journey had only just begun. But before he could think further, his phone buzzed with a message breaking through the air. Shock washed over the group. The words gripped Jason's heart, foreboding and urgent. "Your legacy isn't just a story. It's a battle that's just begun. You need to subscribe now! Smash that like button now! Your support matters! Flood the comment section with your reactions and theories! And don't wait another second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to know this outcome. This is the moment to show your support. Only true fans understand how essential it is.